1, 2, 3, 4. First you have to have a problem. That part isn't hard. The second step is everybody realizing they're like you. They're holding the same card. Step 3 is finding there's a tactic when everyone believes it could be true. That if all the people work collectively, there just might be something we can do, and everything can change. So quick. The congressmen and businessmen and TV sets will try hard to make sure it isn't so. You don't have a problem. If you do, it's not the same problem. And if it is, well, there's just nowhere you can go. But it's happened many times. The history is rich, though we easily forget how a meme can take hold and grab you, how it can spread out like a net, and everything can change. So quick. They'll say we are lost or we're dreaming, or they'll make a dream for us. They'll try to come up with a good story about why we belong at the back of the bus, about why we belong in this position, about how we don't know what we meant, about how there most certainly isn't any such thing as the 99%, but everything can change. So quick. Everything can change. So quick. So that's the title track from my upcoming CD. Greetings, everybody. This is David Rovix, and I'm doing a special subscription drive broadcast here on Spreaker, and basically, and I'm playing songs from my upcoming CD, which is going to be called Everything Can Change, and features the playing of some fantastic musicians from Florida who may be listening. I think they're on their way to a gig or from a gig at the moment. And but June Bustamante and Al Arenas are playing on that and doing fantastic stuff with the songs I sent them. It's a sort of collaboration using the mail and the internet to work with 3,000 miles in between, and it's going very well. And basically, I'm going to play you some songs from the upcoming CD, and thank you profusely for your subscriptions that have come in. This morning I've already gotten a bunch, 7 since before the show started, including my first subscriber from Alaska, and several more from England, and it's the idea here with the subscription model is to basically be able to not be chasing around paying gigs all the time, and actually have a bit more freedom to go to places and play in places where there aren't paying gigs, and also to have resources to be able to make recordings without a new fundraising campaign every year to do that. And I wrote about these ideas fairly at fairly lengthy length in a couple of blog posts recently, in one called Tax Time, A Musician's Income, which was inspired by my experiences recently doing our taxes, or Reiko doing our taxes, and me looking at the numbers and realizing the realities of the situation, making a living as a performing musician. I'm the only one doing it, according to my accountant, in terms of her customer base, which includes a lot of musicians. And it's interesting challenge to try to make a living this way, and I thought having subscribers would be a brilliant way to try to make it work quite a bit better. And I was just thinking, I don't want to talk too much and bore you, but I was thinking about the first half of the first decade of this century, before I had a kid, when every year I was touring in places where I didn't have paying gigs, because I could afford to do that because I was on tour 10 months of the year, so I was making enough money and stuff to do that. But the last time I did that was 2005, and think of all the interesting places I went, like Argentina and the Middle East, and Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Brazil, and I haven't been to places like that since I stopped touring 10 months out of the year when I had a kid. But okay, so that's the nutshell reason why I thought this subscriber thing would be a great idea, and hopefully I wrote about it a bit more eloquently than I'm actually talking about it now. But on those blog posts, the other blog post, which actually has the subscriber idea, is called 1,000 Friends, a crowdsourced career. And if you go to davidrovics.com, you can see those links. That link, the subscribe link there, that tells you about it, more about it. But anyway, as it pertains to the upcoming CD, Everything Can Change, the subscriber idea is basically, rather than trying to raise funds to pay for this whole process of paying musicians in studio and duplicating CDs and all that, I thought I'll just make it a campaign for subscribers, and when I reach 200 subscribers, I'm going to release the CD. And until then, it's only going to exist in these tracks here that I'm playing for you now on this show, and for subscribers, they'll be able to get it digitally, but everybody else will have to wait until I get 200 subscribers so I can pay for the whole thing. Then I'll put it up for free, and I'll sell CDs. So is that complicated? I don't know, but I'm going to play another song for you now from the upcoming CD. This is the only one of these mixes that is actually mastered, I'm told. The rest are rough mixes, but they sound darn good to me. And this is also, I think, well, not I think, it is very relevant to current events recently, because President Obama just visited Israel and had a nice little, tete-a-tete with Netanyahu, and here's one for the war criminal in power in Israel, who, what was it, a couple months ago, bombed Gaza back into the Stone Age again. And I wrote this then. It's called What Do You Call It?
What do you call it when a movement takes up arms and seizes power by the barrel of a gun? Moves into the homes of those they've dispossessed and says this whole country is ours now that we've won. What do you call a government that forces families from their homes and turns them into refugees? All the while complaining of these dirty tent dwellers, that it's they who want to drive us into the sea. What do you call a government that builds walls around the ghettos and only looks at you through sniper sights? who uses your cheap labor to build those very walls while they tell the world how they believe in human rights. What do you call a government that makes war upon their neighbors, who annexes land for living room? Who conducts a foreign policy based on threats and bombing raids, whose opponents often end up in a prison or a tomb? What do you call a government who talks of enemies within and seals off the camps to make sure they cannot eat, who keeps their prisoners on diets to guarantee an early death with their mantra, history cannot repeat? What do you call a government that puts numbers on the arms of the people that they torture and arrest? Whose soldiers commit war crimes systematically, while they proclaim their conduct is superior at best? What do you call a government that bombs its starving subjects after taking from them everything they had? Whose citizens are soldiers, brainwashed to believe their opponents are fanatics, terrorists, or mad? What do you call it when a movement takes up arms and seizes power by the barrel of a gun? Moves into the homes of those they've dispossessed and says this whole country is ours now that we've won.
Yeah, that's what do you call it? And I love those spacey sounds. And I know that June is apparently listening, so they're driving through Florida on her phone, which is a better way to listen than sitting at home on a computer, I believe, because I've just been hearing about a study that has shown that basically spending time in front of a computer is a depressive thing to do, and it's a constant contradiction in our lives, isn't it, for most of us, very much including me. And I've been thinking I want to actually just do a tour by bicycle and play in parks, and that would be not at all financially viable, but if I get enough subscribers, then I can start touring that way. And not all the time necessarily. I'm not going to go off the deep end, I don't think. But that, I like that kind of idea, which is untenable and impossible under normal circumstances, but could be fun. And there's Jack listening in from Delhi, and Delhi, India, where I believe it is sometime in the wee hours of the morning. I know that of course it's and I know that because there's a chat room. If those of you listening on Spreaker, there's a little chat room there. If you go down to the lower right of the screen, you'll see a little chat bubble, kind of green little chat bubble kind of thing, and if you click on that, you'll see the chat room, and that's where Jack just said he's listening and his connection is rubbish, which for those of you from, well, you know what rubbish means, but it's that's a problem in much of the world, but rubbish connections. But it sounds pretty good if you have a good connection, which is nice, because it used to be internet radio just sounded like shit no matter whether you had a good connection or not. Hey, and there's Bodhi Brata, wonderful. And yeah, so also 2 people in Delhi, fantastic. And Mark Manley from somewhere, who knows, I'm not sure. I could click on that. What would happen though if I clicked on his name? Maybe the whole thing my show would disappear. No, it must be better than that. But what do I think of the XL pipeline? I have a song about that, but it's not mixed yet, so I can't play it for you. But I think the pipeline is a pipeline to oblivion, a pipeline to the end. And it's a pipeline that has to be stopped by any means that might work. Just Jason Jason, Alabama. Alabama. Are you visiting Alabama, Jason? For some reason, I thought you were from upstate New York, but I knew you have a radio show, and I thought you were from New York, but you're from Alabama? My grandma's from Alabama. Or maybe you're just in Alabama. I had a gig in Alabama years ago in Mobile. 2 gigs in Mobile, many, many years ago. And then the guy from Mobile moved to Olympia, Washington, and that's the last time I had a gig in Alabama. This happens a lot, that kind of thing, where you have a gig in some kind of out-of-the-way place, and then whoever organized that gig ends up moving to somewhere like Olympia or Portland or New York or London or wherever all the cool people are supposed to be. You've got oh great, Jason has a great place for me to play in Alabama, which is gosh, there's a real radio host listening. Tim, this is now I have to sound more coherent, I think. I think I'm going to play another song, which I think is a brilliant mix done by June and Al there in Florida, which is another track from my upcoming CD, Everything Can Change, and it can. And that title track, which I played at the beginning, was an explanation of how it can. It's a 3-step process, basically, which I figured, you know, it's good to boil it down to 3 steps and fit it into a song. And the 3 steps, I believe, are first everybody has to have the same problem. The second step is everybody realizing they have the same problem. And the third step is everybody realizing that through collective action they can change their situation. And of course the powers that be are trying to prevent each step of the way from happening, trying to make sure we don't all have the same problem, and we don't know that we have the same problem, and of course that we feel too powerless to do anything about it if we did know. That's the whole, I think that's pretty much the whole thing boiled up into 3 minutes. A 3-minute sort of, too long for a tweet, but it's a song length kind of thing. Oh my goodness, the 2 people listening in India don't know each other. That's fantastic. I think that's what I'm getting from the chat here. I just assumed that you guys would have been friends, but that's not the case. And London, wonderful, great. Listening from London, Tulsa, Oklahoma, wonderful, and India, Alabama. I love, this is, it may be a depressive, the internet, I'm saying, but this is what I love about it, that we can have people from several different continents tuning in. That it always, this kind of thing always also reminds me of the Utah Phillips, the wonderful Utah Phillips, late great Utah Phillips used to say that he was famous worldwide. He had dozens of fans worldwide, and I identify with that. Here's it's kind of going on with playing more songs from the new album, but also songs that are in this case relevant to recent events. I'm thinking of Obama's visit to Israel, all the promises that don't amount to much. Here's 4 more years.
You can say you are a man of the people, and you have our interests in mind. You can say you stand with the working class, and you would march on our picket lines. You can say you're with the underdogs, not the billionaires on Wall Street. And you look so earnest as you shake the hands of all the good people you meet, but you don't fool me. No, you don't fool me. You can call yourself a man of action. You can say we've got to make haste. You can talk so convincingly about all the hazards we face. You can blather on about green jobs with nukes and natural gas. You can reminisce about your youth and the time that you smoked some grass, but you don't fool me. No, you don't fool me. You can say you are a man of peace. You can talk like you know the score. Yeah, if you were in the Senate at the time, you would have voted against the war. You can say that every drone strikes a blow for liberty. You can claim this is not an empire, you just want everyone to be free, but you don't fool me. No, no, you don't fool me. You can make a speech about hope and change. You can bring us all to tears. You can list all your accomplishments. Say, give us 4 more years. You can make the case your party is so different from the other. You can say you've got my back. You can call yourself my brother, but you don't fool me. No, you don't fool me. You don't fool me. Oh, no, you don't fool me.
That's 4 more years, and June and Al playing with me there remotely, but it sounds so real. And gosh, wonderful to see all these people out there in the chat room. Switzerland, hello, Switzerland, and yeah, this is fun. So and thanks so much to VJ for that tremendous donation that just popped up on my phone. See, and I don't want to mention his last name in case he doesn't want me to. I figure there's a lot of VJs in the world, but it's if they pop up anytime somebody makes a donation or subscribes to my subscription campaign, it'll pop up on my phone immediately. So those of you who are inclined to do so, you know, it'll be tell me if you don't want me to mention your name, or maybe I will, but it's certainly much appreciated by me and hopefully other fans of music out there in the world. And I always feel, I don't know, for those of you in the US, you know what it's like to listen to National Public Radio and their fund drives, and anytime I'm doing this kind of thing in any way, I always feel like I'm one of those NPR hosts, and I'm going to start talking about the cups and the the t-shirts and stuff. I should have t-shirts and cups, really. Why not? But I don't. I did have t-shirts, but I thought it didn't go over so well, and I think because they were just badly designed, and I should stick to music. Oh, speaking of music, though, I do have a lot of CDs, which if you do subscribe, I don't want to harangue you to do it, but if you do want to be like those other 55 people at this point who have done it, then that's wonderful. And what this entails basically is clicking subscribe on my website at davidrowics.com, and then clicking the subscribe button within that, and you'll get signed up to send me $50 a year, which will get you a very, very impressive laminated card, which is still in the design process, but it will be designed and done soon. A laminated card giving you free entry and backstage pass, very exclusive, to any of my shows anywhere in the world. Also, it will get you a subscription to any of the CDs or other physical merchandise of some other kind that I produce. You'll be getting it in the mail anytime there is one, or a link to digital stuff. You'll be getting all that. That's the idea behind a subscription. And there it is in a nutshell. I think I managed to explain it there sort of coherently. I was asking June on chat here on my phone, which you're welcome to communicate with me that way too, any of you out there, if I was coherent, and she gave me some pointers on trying to be a little more coherent, and I think I got it there, maybe, but it's written down too. It's better written, and I'm not going to read that because that would be a way to alienate you all, I'm sure. Now let's see, where were we here? Where were we? Yeah. Here's a song that another song from the upcoming CD, another rough mix. This is Comets of Kandahar, which is directly stolen from Bruce Cockburn. Apologies to Bruce, but basically Bruce, who is a brilliant musician and a wonderful guy, not that I know him in particular, I met him once, but he's a brilliant musician and has in the past written some of the best songs about all sorts of things, and he's a brilliant guitar player, etc. And it was sort of unfortunate to me to read last time I was in Toronto that in 2011 he went to Afghanistan and visited the Canadian troops there and said some pretty unmistakably positive things about Canada's role as an occupying force in Afghanistan. And I thought, this is not the Bruce Cockburn that I thought I knew through his songs, like brilliant songs like They Call It Democracy and Stolen Land and If I Had a Rocket Launcher. So I wrote this song while sitting in a friend's living room in Toronto. Comets based on those three Bruce Cockburn songs that I just mentioned. So if those of you who are Bruce Cockburn fans will recognize perhaps the references in here. False start.
The Twin Towers came down in 2001. Bush said bin Laden must pay for what he'd done. The Taliban offered to turn him over to a court. But the USA said to them, "We'll have nothing short of an invasion of your country. By imperial command, we'll bomb your villages, steal your land. Your children can cower in fear just before they die as the comets of Kandahar are streaming through the sky." We'll overthrow your government and put there in its place a kleptocratic oil man, a national disgrace who can bleed your country dry, make sure your people pay while we kill innocent civilians every single day with missile strikes from above the clouds in F-33. We'll call it liberation. We'll call it democracy. We'll send the death squads out to kill you if you dare to question why, as the comets of Kandahar are shooting through the sky. And as your nation crumbles, as the rubble turns to dust, as the Russian tanks and helicopters blacken with the rust, as the children die, and their parents take up arms to defend their dignity, their religion, their cities, and their farms, Canadian crusaders will meet the fate of ages, facing men who say of them, "As the battle rages, if I had a rocket launcher, some son of a bitch would die as the comets of Kandahar are shooting through the sky.
Comets of Kandahar. Chilling image, I think, that some soldier told to Bruce Coburn while he was there. Talked about the comets of Kandahar, the jets streaming through the sky, and of course it's a beautiful image, unless you're used to getting bombed by jets, I suppose. Then it's maybe not so beautiful. Well, I think it's okay for me to mention this on the air. I'm hoping Brian Hunt from North Adams, Massachusetts, thank you so much for your subscription that just came in. North Adams, what a wonderful little sort of ex-mill town on the river there in western Massachusetts, really close to Rowe, Massachusetts, where I went to camp as a kid when I was like 12, 13, 14, to their junior high camp, and had just some profoundly wonderful experiences there, and sort of joined the anti-nuclear movement there in Rowe, where the Yankee atomic nuclear reactor was, the oldest online nuclear reactor in the U.S. Now it's not online, but it was then, leaking away. I never really thought of the getting radiated while I was at Rowe, because we were protesting it, so I thought that made us kind of immune to the radiation somehow, but I think that was probably not the case. But let's see, it's looking at in the chat room, Darren Whitaker, is that so GMT plus 11 hours, so you must be in Australia, I'm guessing that would be. Really? No, wait, geez, yeah, I think that makes you somewhere in East Asia or Australia as a region, right? So yeah, I think I'm terrible with this, but I'm sure that there's got to be, I think several of you, it must be listening in the middle of the night. I think that is the case. I can't do the math. My daughter's really good at math. She's 7. She could figure it out. She's not here at the moment. So I'll do another song from the upcoming CD, which is becoming more and more an upcoming CD with every new subscription, feeling more like it's really going to happen. And you know, it is. I mean, I don't know. I probably don't have to tell most of you listening that it feels good to get subscribers. It's you know, everyone makes a big difference. Life is fairly hand to mouth. I'm not complaining, but it's you know, it's great. It's meaningful. It will make a difference. I hope, certainly in my life, and hopefully in others as well. By you know, by direct consequence, I would hope. That's how it's supposed to work anyway, if I'm doing my job. And here is a song, "A Dream Foreclosed," which I wrote basically as a response to the foreclosure crisis we're having in this country and in so many other countries around the world. You know, I'm gonna, after I do a whole bunch of new songs, of the new songs from the upcoming CD, I figured I'd keep on blathering on and play some tracks that I've gotten onto the playlist here on Spreaker that are directly relevant to recent events, like in the past week, you know, news of the past week, and I thought I'd talk about that a bit and play some songs related to it, and see what other people have to say. Ever think of sitting in for Amy Goodman on occasion? Asks Mark Manley. I've never really thought of, well, maybe I've thought of it. You know, I don't know how good a job I do, but actually I really like the idea of doing interviews with people, and I've done some of that, and I'd like to do more of it. And as soon as I figure out how to work the software better here on my little computer, or something, I will be doing interviews with people as well, probably with more of a sort of music, art, culture focus than Democracy Now. Although, if I were asked to host a news show of some kind somewhere in the world, Al Jazeera comes to mind, I would gladly accept the invitation. I would love to do something like that, and maybe I could learn to stop saying so much. I think I'd need a lot of training, but I would like to do more radio hosting, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this little show and trying to get a little practice at hosting some kind of a radio show. And no idea how much of a good job I'm doing, and it's also fairly unconventional to just be playing my own songs, which I would not do if I were hosting a show on Al Jazeera or something like that. But for the internet, somehow it seems appropriate. They're also the easiest songs for me to get because they're all online, so I don't know, I've never tried to figure out how iTunes works. I'm going to do another song now. This is A Dream Foreclosed.
Life used to be so normal. I remember how normal it was. Take a shower, go to work every morning. Do the things a fella does. We paid our mortgage every month, managed that okay. But when the mortgage doubled, we couldn't pay. Now life takes a turn I never had supposed. Living in a dream foreclosed. I'd go off to work. My kids would go to school. I even joined the army once. Now I feel like such a fool. It's not that life was easy then, but at least it made some sense. You weren't worried about freezing to death, not like living in these tents. You weren't worried about the cops getting out a fire hose. Living in a dream foreclosed. Lots of folks in town don't realize how we're living these days, but you can see it in the children's 1,000-mile gaze. I've got a head full of home movies about all the things I miss. They say we need 4 walls, but they weren't talking to walls like this. Maybe we'll go find another country to live in, 'cause life in this one blows. Living in a dream foreclosed.
So there's a lot of activity around foreclosure. Well, not a lot, but there's some activity around the foreclosure crisis going on here in Portland, with people taking over houses and that they used to live in. I guess you could call it taking it over. It's more like staying in it, or depending on the situation. And there's been people like in a group called We Are Oregon that have been supportive of this effort and these efforts. And in many ways, there's a good little text mob you can get onto, text message thing, where if there's police activity at a certain house, you'll know about it right away. And hopefully that's happening in other places. I know it's going on in Minnesota, and I'm sure it must be happening in other places. I've heard about this kind of thing going on in Florida. It needs to be so much more widespread. I'm often wondering why it's not, but I think that may change, could change very quickly, and in a big way. It seems like it seems often like we're on the brink of that, and it's not happening yet. And but it might any minute now. And who knows what's going to be going on in Greece and Cyprus. And it's very interesting times we're in, and I'll do more music related to that and talk related to that in a bit. But I think this is, let's see, is this the last song from my upcoming, of the 6 tracks from my upcoming CD? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think 6. I think that's it. This is what I got from the upcoming CD. This is the last track. And this is Ballad of Eola Park, which is a park in Orlando, Florida, where not far away from where June and Al are in St. Pete. Eola Park in Orlando is where Food Not Bombs was serving food, as they do, for free in public spaces like parks and across from city halls and stuff like that. And not wanting to be out of sight and out of mind, but wanting to be in nice, comfortable public places. Well, comfortable when it's not raining. And they were arrested, as they often have been in different places throughout the U.S. and other countries. There was actually, I met a Food Not Bombs activist from Russia who was there at the Food Not Bombs World Gathering in Tampa last summer. And they get arrested a heck of a lot in Russia as well. And I believe Keith McHenry and others in San Francisco were arrested. I think Keith was arrested himself 29 times in San Francisco when they were starting up Food Not Bombs in the 80s. And I think that's when I first met him, around 87, at least at least briefly, when I was just young and living in the Bay Area. And then when I heard about their arrest in Eola Park in Orlando, the home of Disney World, I was inspired to verse, and I wrote this song.
1, 2, 3, 4. In the land of Minnie Mouse and Mickey, things are getting icky since the municipality of Orlando, Florida, passed a moratoria against feeding hungry people in their city. The mayor said with a scoff, we'd all be better off without these food terrorists lurking like a shark. So he did declare, Samaritans beware, no more feeding hungry people in the park. And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. There are many things you can do when you're passing through that are much more acceptable than that. Go on amusement rides, eat things that are fried, buy each one of your kids a little hat. You can stay in a hotel, pretend everything is swell, go to SeaWorld and hear the seals bark. But whatever else you have in mind, you will be in a bind if you feed the hungry people in the park. And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. some wine. Have yourself a good time, have a good vacation, then retire. But if you want to stir up trouble, if you deign to pop the bubble and try to feed the hungry people of the Shire, in such a public place, we can't suffer such disgrace, though the logic may seem a little stark. What would the neighbors say? Where will the children play if you keep feeding hungry people in the park? And if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail. Yes, if you do, you'd better raise your bail, 'cause you'll be fined $500 and sent to jail.
So, that is the last of the songs from the upcoming CD that I've got here, and so yeah. And when I on my way, and when I manage to make it to 200 subscribers, I am going to be putting out that CD. But in the meantime, it will exist only in limited form online for subscribers and people who donate once it's up. And I'll be keeping you posted about that. Those of you on my email list and stuff like that. I guess in order to be in the chat room, you have to have a Facebook account, I think is what VJ said. So maybe that's so for all of you who are not in the chat room, because it's hard to register, then sorry about that. And but glad you're out there. I heard from some other folks who are listening from places that are not in the chat room as well. I think we have most continents represented, and of course folks can. This show will be archived and people can listen to it anytime after I broadcast. Not to mention subscribe. Did I mention that? Okay, let's see. How about I'm gonna ramble on a bit about what's been politics of the past week or two since the last time I was on the radio, so to speak, and hope you like my selections, my musical selections, which are related to recent events, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat room if you want to say anything about, just let me know that you're still awake, or just say anything you feel like saying, or interactivity is nice. That's the nice thing about live broadcasts, is the potential for interactivity of some kind. And well, in light of the fact that the Cypriot economy seems to be about to crash and burn under the negligent auspices of the European Union, here is my song "Crashing Down," which I, because I predicted all this stuff, because basically anybody who's read Karl Marx can predict the downfall of capitalism, and there's so many ways to predict that, so I think this was basically an inevitable result of the deregulation of the American banks, and I still don't understand how the Europeans got so wrapped up into the American banking crisis. Well, I do. I mean, basically they were chasing cheap money, and then of course the capitalists were, and then everybody else has to pay for it. And I think that's my basic understanding of that. Maybe somebody can illuminate me if I'm oversimplifying, but here's Crashing Down.
It can happen in a moment. Sometimes it does, when what could be is and what shouldn't be was. There are times when you gotta stand steady. There are other times when you gotta be ready. The window can't open, it seems so wide, but you can never tell when it's gonna slam shut. One day you're a target on the firing ranges. The next day all of a sudden everything what you do. Some moments are coming, others have came, and then there are those when you just gotta take aim. When it all, when it all, when it all, when it all comes crashing down. When it all, when it all, when it all comes crashing down. When it all, when it all, when it all comes crashing down. When it all, when it all, when it all comes crashing down.
So there's Crashing Down, and nice to see. Yeah, there, you don't have to be a Facebook. You don't have to be signed up for Facebook in order to join the chat room. You just need to go into through Spreaker, and then there's less information they need. And yeah, VJ, as far as the meaning of the song "Waiting for the Fall," which I would play, except I need to figure out how I can add songs onto the playlist while the show is going on. I'm not sure. Haven't tried that yet. It may work, or maybe it'll crash down. I don't know. But the I think I played that song in the last show I did on talking about the anniversary of the Iraq War. I was thinking about doing more on that today as well. A lot of different networks were, including Democracy Now!, did a great bunch of segments on the anniversary, 10-year anniversary of the Iraq War. And Jack says, VJ, another Indian. And yeah, that's yeah, VJ is in, where are you? In somewhere in New York. I think I can say that without worrying about Big Brother. But oh, half Indian, half Venezuelan American from Texas, living in New York City. Fantastic. This is what, yeah, that's basically, yeah, that's this is what happens so often when people say, so where are you from? My daughter's mother is a Swiss French, of a Swiss and French extraction, and grew up her entire childhood in Venezuela, then moved to Texas. So, what do you say? Where are you from? Well, it's good. Love it. There was a woman from Eastern Washington who's a volunteer with the Rachel Corrie Foundation, a wonderful woman among many other great folks at the Rachel Corrie Foundation, who I was just hanging out with last weekend at Olympia on the 10th anniversary of Rachel's death. And what's her name? Amira, right? I think she grew up in Eastern Washington, and her parents are Egyptian and Venezuelan. And she and her brother were the only Egyptian Venezuelans in Eastern Washington, to be sure. Maybe there are other Egyptian Venezuelans in the bigger cities in Western Washington, but I think in Eastern Washington that family would have been the only one. Let's see. Well, speaking of Venezuela, though, I had this song. But wait a sec. To answer VJ's question about the meaning of the song "Waiting for the Fall," that is directly taken, as with so many of my songs, directly taken from the eloquent journalism of Robert Fisk, reading his book The Great War for Civilization, which is hands down one of the top 10 best books ever written, in my humble opinion. Not that I've read them all, but from what I've seen, phenomenal book. Reads like a novel. I mean, his writing in the Independent and stuff is great, but when he has the freedom to write a book, like the whole thing is different. I mean, he is a born book writer, although he's spent most of his life writing, for the Independent and Times and other publications like that. But the book is just phenomenal, and of course Robert Fitz has spent a lot of time in Iraq, and during the war and before the war. During the Iran-Iraq War, a lot of time over many decades, and he wrote about basically how the everybody's just waiting for the fall was what he was saying in that book. At that time, that was just a few years ago, but he was saying how basically the American occupying army is just looking at everything from behind the sniper, turrets of of the Green Zone, and once an occupying army is only getting around by armored vehicles and has to hide the rest of the time behind the walls of a heavily fortified little green zone, then that's clearly the beginning of the end. If they have so little support from the population that's how they have to live. So that's where that song's coming from, and that I should now play that song since I just sort of introduced it, but I'm technically unable to do that at the moment, so I will continue on with the pre-programmed, I took a whole bunch of songs that are related to recent events and put them all in a big folder, which is what I have to work with here. Here's in terms of recent events, of course, Comandante Hugo Chavez died last week, or a little more than a week ago, and or was it 2 weeks ago now? I don't remember exactly, but it was quite recently, and I there's an interview I did with a Venezuelan newspaper that should be coming out sometime in the next couple days, apparently, I'm told. And anyway, this is my song for Hugo Chavez, and of course I know I always piss off my favorite anarchists with this song, but I think it's very important for people to know that there's a huge difference between different kinds of states that might be called by some bourgeois democracies, and the achievements of the Venezuelan government since 1999 or so have been tremendous for all the progress that is still needed there and in many other places. The achievements have been impressive, and both in Venezuela and around the world, the impact of just the Bank of the South by itself, in terms of the impact that's had on the rest of Latin America, in terms of liberating countries from the influence, the evil influence of the International Monetary Fund. It's been tremendous, and his death will be a big loss. Although hopefully the revolution will continue unabated.
For the moment, the horizon is on fire, democracy rising, balanced on a wire, liberation. You can smell it in the air, things are moving, and the rich are all aware. Some will talk along the sidelines, others they will do. Sing a song for Chavez before the coup. For the moment, the airwaves are alive on the radio. The barrios have arrived, Cuban doctors in their thousands on the street, in the shanty towns. They're pouring the concrete. The opposition whines that Venezuela is all through. Sing a song for Chavez before the coup. For the moment, folks are learning how to read the Constitution. Is the people's creed from their back pocket. They'll take it out for all to see, and their motto is death or liberty. There are those who will complain, mostly the privileged few. Sing a song for Chavez before the coup. For the moment, the oil wells are flowing, and Citgo's profits know exactly where they're going. Feed the hungry, house those without a home, give the tractors to those who dig sod and loam. Maybe he will meet the fate that Allende knew, but I'll sing a song for Chavez before the coup. For the moment, the movement's on the rise, it's all happening right before our eyes. But turn on the TV and there's nothing they will say. If he's gone and we don't hear it, did it happen anyway? If the future's to be ours, I ask, what are you gonna do? Sing a song for Chavez before the coup. Sing a song for Chavez before the coup. Sing a song for Chavez before the coup.
A song for Hugo Chavez with there's Thistle singing harmony with me there, and Sean Staples in Boston, along with some other folks doing that nice musical accompaniment. That was another one of those CDs that was recorded over long distances. I recorded the my parts in Houston, and then Sean put down his parts in Boston, and then it was mixed in Olympia. I think we would have eliminated at least one of those steps if we could do it over again, making it more of two places instead of three, perhaps. But it worked out. A lot of it worked out great. And what was it? VJ was saying about I wanted to share what was it? I was thinking of with these stories about relatives in Venezuela, and it's a very divided society, and I'm sure that of course, it's roughly the vast majority, whatever, 60 to 80% of the population is very supportive of the current administration, and then of course there's a very vocal, much better off minority that can't stand it. They're all, a lot of them are leaving and moving to Florida, and others are staying but complaining, and basically, the rich in Venezuela are still doing just fine, as far as I know. And occasionally, of course, some right-wing racist TV station gets taken off the air, but they should be. And there's a difference between freedom of speech and corporate speech that's meant to incite people against a socialist and democratically elected government. I think these are different things, and speech should be free, but if it's expensive speech that is being paid for by rich people with an agenda, then that's not free speech, that's expensive speech. So it was, but I was thinking of Peter Werby, my good friend Peter Werby from Detroit, fantastic radio broadcaster there in Detroit, like a real one, He was in Caracas and on a delegation of some kind. Maybe it was during the World Social Forum, I can't remember, but he was in Caracas and he had his press credentials on his neck, around his neck, and so fairly easily identified as a member of the press, and fairly easily identified as a gringo, and he was there in Venezuela, and then at some point he was talking about how he took a bus or a train or something, and then ended up in this neighborhood which was like, oh, okay, here's all the white people, here's where the elite lives, and got out of with his delegation walking down the street, and then people were coming up to him saying, hey, us white people are being terribly persecuted, we're the new Jews of Venezuela. And Peter, who is in fact of Jewish descent, said, they're rounding you up and sending you to concentration camps in the cattle cars, and to which they responded, well, not really, and of course, realized that they were not going to get very far with Peter with their sob stories about how oppressed the white people of Venezuela are. So let's see. This is so different from like talking at a show, because at a show I can run my mouth in it and it's not necessarily particularly coherent, but I can tell by the reaction of the audience if it's really boring, or if people are finding it interesting, or even sometimes funny. because they react, and reactions just aren't the same in a chat room or in a empty room. But that's how it is with radio, isn't it? So it's okay. But it makes me think of that movie, Talk Show Host, was it called? Talk Show, maybe? It was good. You really got the sense of the sort of, dual reality of radio. It's not so different from live performance, where you're interacting with your audience. You might have a bigger audience by radio, but you can't see them. I think I'm really stating the obvious here. This is definitely a case of stating the obvious. Jason applauds loudly in the chat room. Well, I feel much better, That's great. That's just what I needed. Thank you. And holds up lighter. Good. Yeah. Applause and the lighter. Now I feel like I'm back in the stadium. I'm back in the stadium playing for the tens of thousands. No, okay, maybe that's overdoing it. But I still love it when they hold up lighters. A chat mosh. Throws body into self-creating chat mosh. Yeah, a chat mosh. That's a brilliant concept. We have to pursue that concept, Jason. I think the chat mosh. Yeah, we need to think about that. About where to go with that one. That is too good to just pass up, I think. But continuing on with another song. The chat room can go on while the song's happening, and I guess talking about the chat room is going to be extremely boring for those of you who are listening to this show later or something. But who would be doing that? I don't know. There must be someone. 186 of you probably. But anyway, here's Song for the Mavi Marmara, which is quite relevant in terms of recent events, because apparently Obama managed to force Netanyahu to make a phone call from a trailer at Ben Gurion Airport. Apparently, it was very last minute. Apparently, Netanyahu called up Erdogan. I can't remember how to say it, in Turkey, the Prime Minister of Turkey, and apologized for the massacre on the Mavi Marmara, which of course he didn't call a massacre, and it wasn't really much of an apology. And but here's my song about that.
In 48 they were driven out at the point of a machine gun. Families fled in fear to Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. They fled around the globe, firmly held in terror's grip, and about 1 million refugees ended up in the Gaza Strip. In 1967, the IDF moved in, and the refugees in Gaza became refugees again. Settlers took their farmland, soldiers took the ports, and the people were surrounded by military forts. In 2007, they cut them off completely. No access to the borders, no access to the sea. The world began to see this unavoidable stamp. The most crowded place on earth was now a concentration camp. Israeli jet fighters bombed Gaza from the air, and they kept out the supplies needed to rebuild and repair. They kept out the convoys of humanitarian aid, anemic children going hungry, crushed and burned in bombing raids from around the world. Good people tried to get across the border to the other side. Almost all of them were turned away, deported back to Turkey, Jordan, France, the USA. They were barred from ever coming back. Adam and Huwaida decided on a different tack. They loaded up a boat, managed to get through. That's when activists in Istanbul decided what to do. Armed with food and wheelchairs and prosthetic limbs for victims of the bombing raids to wear. They packed cement by the ton. They had a few kitchen knives, but not a single gun. They were determined to reach the bay, to break the siege of Gaza and not be turned away. As they left Turkish waters, Everybody wished them well. As for what would happen next, only the apartheid state could tell. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, sailing toward Goliath's kingdom, armed with nothing but a stone. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, tell the children of Jerusalem, you are not alone. 700 people on board this Turkish ferry. They were 60 miles from the shore, out in the open sea, in international waters, with no plans for turning back. That's when Netanyahu told his soldiers to attack. They came down from helicopters, fired guns from Zodiacs. They shot some people in their heads and others in their backs. The captain raised a white flag high into the air, but the soldiers kept on shooting beneath the floodlights' glare. The soldiers kept on shooting. It was a free fire zone. So many dead and wounded. Just how many isn't known. So many dead and wounded, blood flowing on the floor. The soldiers kept on shooting 60 miles from the shore. Medics tried to treat the wounded. All they could do was watch them bleed. The soldiers wouldn't let them get the urgent help they needed. Mass troopers held their hostages. The Navy towed the ship just for trying to sail to the Gaza Strip. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, sailing toward Goliath's kingdom, armed with nothing but a stone. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, tell the children of Jerusalem, you are not alone. Every laptop, every camera and cell phone. This is what Goliath does to those who dare to throw a stone. The ghost of the Exodus is shouting at the sky, but Netanyahu isn't listening. He's just watching people die. For days nobody knew just what happened on that boat, because everyone was held in jail and dead men do not float. All the world will remember what happened on that night, and to end the siege of Gaza, more will go and join the fight. All aboard the Rachel Corrie, sailing toward Goliath's kingdom, armed with nothing but a stone. All aboard the Rachel Corrie, tell the children of Jerusalem, you are not alone. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, sailing toward Goliath's kingdom, armed with nothing but a stone. All aboard the Mavi Marmara, tell the children of Jerusalem, you are not alone.
And as we speak, a Palestinian hunger striker's heart is slowing, and they say he's dying. Samer is dying. I just received a tweet. Yeah, in the chat room. Now I can't scroll up in the chat room for some reason and actually read again what Jason Crane asked, but I think it was about songwriting and the process, and VJ was asking about what's easier to write about and harder to write about, and really it all comes down to a good hook line. I think for me, if you can come up with something that summarizes what you're trying to say, then that really encapsulates it, crystallizes it, something that really sums it up. And it could be just a simple statement of intent or a simple statement of fact. It's often deceptively simple, something like all aboard the Mavi Marmara. It's a very simple thing, and it's not complex or metaphorical it's just a simple statement of intent, and just something that brings everything together, that you can wrap the song around, and then it's really a matter of a verse, knowing what you want to do with the verse, like the verse taking you from somewhere to somewhere else. It needs to have a storyline, needs to have some kind of a narrative and some kind of an intent. And then every rhyme needs to be perfect. You can't have a rhyme that is a forced rhyme or an imperfect kind of rhyme. It all has to work. And yeah, that's the basis of it. Here's Jason's question again. Have you encountered a topic you cared about but couldn't figure out how to write a song about? Yeah, there's... Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that what makes it really complicated sometimes, I mean, there's so many different things that can make it more complicated to write a song about a particular topic. And like, if you can put yourself, well, I don't know, one of the things, there's so many things that can get in the way, but one of the things that I find can be challenging as a topical songwriter, writing about things outside of my own life. I mean, that is one thing that is writing about your own life is a real minefield, because if you have something critical to say about somebody close to you when you're writing some kind of a love song or something, that of course even if you're changing names and stuff like that, people know who you're writing about sometimes, and so that can be challenging in different ways. But for me, as a topical songwriter mostly, I find that one of the things, like I always say, and I think it's very true, that you can, no matter what your background is, you can write about anything. You are a human being, and you have a common set of emotional reactions and experiences and to other human beings, even if you haven't had a rough life, or if you've had a relatively privileged life. What I have found is that you are human, and that you can actually relate to anybody, no matter how different their life has been. And of course, for me personally, it took the death of my friend Eric Mark to come to that realization. He had to be killed for me to realize that. In my particular case, I think a lot of people come to this realization without having such a traumatic experience. But however people come to that realization, whether through trauma or not, I think it is true for anybody. And once you realize that you share a common humanity with other people, and you can write about other people from a convincing, personal, first-person kind of narrative perspective, and you can move other people who are from that background, which is how you're representing them well, then I think then you can basically write about anything. But what I find is a problem, as specifically as an American, is like trying to say something, to write a song that is, say, critical of the Iranian government, for example, is challenging, because there are a lot of bad things about the Iranian government. Also, there are good things about it, at least compared to the previous government, which is not saying much, maybe. But there's good and bad things, but there are bad things that are certainly worth criticizing, not only about the Iranian government, but about a lot of other things in the world. But as an American left-winger, there are problems with trying to be understood and not misconstrued when writing a song that's, say, critical of Iran in some way. Not that I'm saying necessarily that I would want to write a song about that's all critical about the Iranian revolution, or about Ahmadinejad, or whatever else. But I'm just using that as an example to say that it's a minefield. And if I were not of a if I were I don't know. It's a minefield. It's always a minefield, right? I mean, what if I weren't even, from a Western country? It was still a minefield, because there's lots of ways it could be misconstrued if you are, say, Arab writing about Iran, or if you are, from India, or whatever. I mean, it's a minefield, and so that's kind of, I guess, there are challenges involved in that way, in a lot of ways. So I'm just going to read a couple of questions here from the chat room, and maybe off topic. VJ says, but what exactly is left wing or right wing? People use the terms a lot, but no self-consistent definition seems to match those who label themselves. Well, and also VJ had mentioned about how anytime among your coworkers you criticize Israel, it gets construed as basically anti-Semitism, and that is a very common problem on the left. In society generally, in the U.S. In particular, also in other societies, especially among Jews, that people often think that if you're criticizing Israel, then you're an anti-Semite, and there's that is it's just nonsense. Of course, anti-Semitism exists, and there are people who don't like Jews because they're Jews, but and that sucks. But that aside, there are a lot of more people, I think, in the world who have real problems with the state of Israel, because it's a settler state led by mostly European and North American settlers, who, of course Jewish also, who went and invaded the Palestinians' land. The Palestinians, who are ethnically, incidentally, the inheritors of the original Jewish population of Palestine. Mostly they stayed and they didn't leave. Mostly they stayed and they became Muslims and Christians later, and some remained Jews. But those are the Jews, actually, and the invaders from Europe and North America are not related to those people, and they went and for the most part, and they went and took over their land by force, and forced 700,000 people off of their land, and who became a population of refugees that now is in its several million. And that's why people have a problem with the state of Israel, because it's led by invaders who are unapologetic about the fact that they stole somebody else's land, and then in defense, those people in Israel will often say, "Well, you're living on stolen land too," and that is exactly the case. And they seem to think that people from this stolen land in North America don't understand that. And no, we understand that, and it's also wrong. And there also needs to be all sorts of reparations made here. And in neither case is anyone suggesting that everybody. Or very few people, I think, are suggesting that everybody in North America or everybody in Israel should go back home, wherever that is, especially if they were born there. They are home. But the point is not that they're not home necessarily, but that they got there by stealing other people's land, and that they owe those people something, a lot. Certainly they owe them equality and equal treatment under the law, and they owe them reparations, and they owe them land, but yeah. So, and what is left wing or right wing? Well, that is a very tough one. It depends on who's asking, who's doing the defining. But generally, my daughter, who I mentioned, who's 7, we were sitting around the table recently, and she said, Daddy, what is this left wing and right wing thing? What's that all about? Something like that is how she phrased it. And I said, and I thought, oh gosh, I really don't want to come off sounding like a total partisan here. I want to really give her some reasonable definitions of these things. And I said, well, left-wingers believe basically, and of course I'm trying to be accessible to a 7-year-old, but I said, left-wingers believe that the world is everybody's world and should be shared, and that everybody deserves to have a place to live and to have food and all that kind of thing, medical care, that there's a basic rights that everybody has, something like that. And right-wingers believe that you should only get something if you work hard for it, and that only people who work hard deserve to have things, and everybody else should basically fend for themselves. And I think that pretty much sums it up from pretty well from both perspectives, and maybe I'm being unfair to the right-wingers by characterizing their philosophy that way, but they seem to characterize it that way themselves quite often. So I think that's a pretty fair characterization of the basic difference between left and right. And then my daughter said, "Oh, so we're left-wingers, right?" And I said, "Well, I am. Up to you if you are." But she clearly wanted to be identifying tribally like that, and if she does, then I suppose, then I guess we're left-wingers. She seems to be a left-winger, but anarchist actually. Say something about Have Guitar Will Travel. That's my new book, my only book. Well, I have a booklet which is about how to make a living as a musician, but called Sing for Your Supper on PM Press. But my book of travel logs is called Have Guitar Will Travel, Protest Travel Writing. You can get it for $2.99 from any of the main ebook distributors like Amazon and Kobo and iBooks and all that, and it's I think it's a very good book, I hope, about my travels and since 2006 basically, and it's written to try to be interesting and entertaining, and I hope it succeeds and at that. So that's the book. I could read something from it here, but that just seems like such a boring thing to do. So I don't know. If I were on a book show, I would be doing that, right? But $2.99, get the book, and you like it, and please review it if you do get it. I would really appreciate reviews and all that kind of thing. Share it, tell your friends about it. And I'm just going to read another statement question here from VJ. On the current topic, what makes it so difficult is that one cannot have a basic conversation. It gets shut down immediately if the topic is Israel and the conclusion is anything other than worship of said country. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a big problem. It's a serious blind spot that I think is probably shared by the majority of the Jewish population of this country. And it's very unfortunate, and it's very rooted in I think not only recent history but history going back that's not so recent as well, and that's even more offensive to some of these folks to talk about this idea that this sort of idea of that the only people that matter is ourselves kind of idea. It's a tribalistic idea that's very popular in lots of different tribes in the world, including the Jewish tribe, and it's really messed up, and it leads to bad things, and it predates the Holocaust. It's not a product entirely of the Holocaust. It predates the Holocaust, and if you talk about that, then you'll really piss people off. Book I think is very good by Gilad Atzmon called The Wandering Who gets into that question. I highly recommend it, and it's on iBooks too. That's where I read it. But yeah, The Wandering Who. Other very good books on the subject. I mean, in terms of having a really good solid understanding of the history, which I think is helpful, at least to some extent, for having debates with your coworkers, to really know your stuff. Is that Phyllis Bennis wrote a fantastic book that is a great summary of the conflict, and that's probably the most recent one. And also Nicholas Guyat, Guyatt. He also wrote a fantastic sort of synopsis kind of thing called In the Absence of Peace. And Mark Manley, thank you for reviewing the book on Amazon. Wow, immediate response to my request of a review. I love it. And I'm just I'll play another song about recent political events in the news. But first, reading what VJ just wrote, I always considered the necessity of social services to be a side effect of private property. Right to life equals right to means of life equals land. Privatized land equals more means of life is unmet without society intervention. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a capitalist system based on the market, you have to have you have to be able to regulate it thoroughly. It has to be thoroughly regulated, so that those who fall through the cracks, which will be a huge percentage of the society, are taken care of. At least, I mean, if you're going to do capitalism, you must have it. It must be accompanied by a welfare state and heavily regulated. Otherwise, it's completely destructive, which I think it is anyway, because there's not only is human life not taken into consideration with capitalism, but also the environment is not considered as anything to be. It doesn't factor into the equation, and it's just as necessary for us to breathe the air and be able to eat from the land as it is, of course, for those of us living in monetized societies to be able to have money. So there you go. But I'm gonna play a song here for those of you out there who want to hear one, maybe. And this is about recent events, which there was what came to light recently in terms of Steele. What's his name? Steele. His last name is Steele. Featured on Democracy Now! Recently. A documentary done by The Guardian and some other folks working with them, can't remember, but they were BBC Arabic, a documentary about the influence of this guy Steele, who was the State Department's man in Iraq in around 2006 or so, who was responsible for organizing death squads, and just as he did in El Salvador during the war in El Salvador. And this came to light. Information about these death squads and his role in forming the death squads came to light because of the leaks that Bradley Manning allegedly provided for us on that Lady Gaga CD that he gave to WikiLeaks. And here's my song for Bradley Manning, which I wish they had played on Democracy Now! Last week, but you keep wishing.
True, he was paid to read reports, find the patterns sifting through. As he read the data, the patterns did emerge. Patterns that were clear both before and since the surge. Patterns of abuse of the most horrific kind. Gunning down civilians out of view and out of mind. Gunning down the opposition in the middle of the night. Sending off the scholars to be tortured out of sight. Sometimes you need desperate measures when you live in desperate times. Private Manning saw he was looking at war crimes. He wondered what to do to allow the dead to speak. He finally decided to contact WikiLeaks. Now it's all out on the table and everybody knows the emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes. He stabbed Bradley in the back, called the cops and turned him in. But not before the soldier took 500,000 files. If you printed all the pages, they'd stretch on for miles. Evidence against the state, right from the horse's mouth. Machinations in the west, bombings in the south. A treasure trove of details for all the globe to see. How much they need to lie and kill for democracy. How many drone strikes have hit villages, leaving every someone else. The official line, not I. How many coups have been plotted by ambassadors who say that free and fair elections be the order of the day? Now it's all out on the table and everybody knows. The emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes. Genie's out of the bottle, and they're trying to stuff it back and stop it from illuminating everything we lack, such as the rule of law or playing by the book. Look, you can read it, it's right here. The ship of state is run by crooks, and they vilify the messengers, call them every name for daring to blow the whistle on the nature of their game, the game of taking lives and endangering the rest, in order for the wealthy few to do what they do best, dominate the world for the corporate elite. But now their cover's blown from their head down to their feet, and now the stars and stripes is looking much more like a rag. The lid is off the box, the cat's out of the bag. Now it's all out on the table and everybody knows. The emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes. It's all out on the table and everybody knows. The emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes.
That's a song for Bradley Manning, and yes, VJ is. Folks are commenting about the reworking the radio situation. The deregulation of the airwaves in this country, in the United States, has been a complete disaster, and of course. There was the golden age, really, you could say, of independent FM radio in the 60s and 70s, and it really cannot be overstated what a effect that had on on the culture to have all those independent stations, and of course, yes, it's much better in Canada, as Vijay is also saying, and it's much better in many other countries now than it is in the United States. I mean, most other countries it's much better. It's almost hard to realize, in a way that actually the U.S. had certainly one of the world's most vibrant independent FM scenes, in the 60s and 70s. It was great, and that all was destroyed by Reagan, deregulating the airwaves. But it's also important for people out there, especially in the U.S. And really outside the U.S. as well, to realize that not only did Reagan destroy the airwaves in the U.S. with deregulating the airwaves, but Bill Clinton further deregulated the airwaves much further. Reagan destroyed the situation by basically making it possible for any individual or corporation to own up to 40 radio stations, whereas before Reagan they could only own one. Not one network, one station. And then Bill Clinton lifted the roof off completely so that they could own as many as they want. And now we have the completely disastrous and complete, just totally corporate takeover now that you have. It's unmitigated disaster. Every other country in the world that has any resemblance of a free press has a much better radio situation for their own musicians and for musicians generally, compared to the United States, where it's just a disaster. Well, I've been online here for more than an hour and a half, and maybe you guys are getting tired, and those of you in India must be getting towards bedtime. I don't know, it's probably like 4 a.m. or something. But in light of the recent comments about the airwaves, I thought I'd do a song also related to recent events. Steal this MP3, I'll do that. It's from my latest album that's actually online, that latest album as of several months ago, Meanwhile in Afghanistan, which you can download by donation or for free at davidrovics.com. Just click on the link for Meanwhile in Afghanistan, and of course this is a subscription drive, and you can click on the subscribe link at davidrovics.com as well. And thanks so much to Jack for the donation, and to VJ for the donation. Wonderful. Thank you both so much, and thanks so much to Brian Hunt for the subscription, and to all those who donated earlier. I think we are up to I can't remember now, 57 maybe, maybe more, maybe 60 now. I'll have to. I haven't had time to update my blog, but I'll do that when I get offline, off the air, and yeah, thanks so much. Keep it coming, and I will do and I'm really for those of you out there in Europe, I know there's somebody listening from Switzerland. I'm very much looking forward to going to Europe in a few weeks. April 15th I'll be flying to Trondheim, to actually first to Copenhagen and hanging out for a night, and then I'll be doing gigs in Norway. It looks like Trondheim, Oslo, and Bergen, and then I'll be doing shows all over Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, Holland, Britain, and Ireland. And I got plenty of room for more shows, but there's more than 30 of them I think lined up, and it's looking really good, especially for Switzerland, Denmark, and England, but lots of other places too, and it's going to be a fun tour, aside from missing my little girl. And I'll of course, you can at davidrovics.com you can see all that, and I'm going to Australia and New Zealand later in the summer, and Hong Kong and Japan, and then back to Europe again. And here is I'll do a couple more songs though before I sign off. Both related very much to Europe, as are many of these songs, but here's there has been some fantastic protests over the past couple of years in Europe in particular against these restrictive laws, international agreements like ACTA, which was for now defeated, and but here's a song I wrote for that campaign, sort of, not directly, they didn't use it necessarily, but for them in a way, you could say, if you know what I'm saying.
People are marching against the chiefs of industry who are trying to protect their intellectual property. Secret negotiations to make a secret deal. They've got Warner Brothers, Sony, and the presidential seal. They say they lobby on behalf of you and me. I say, steal this MP3. 50 years ago, what some call the golden age, Indie FM was the king. The world was a stage. Independent labels made records by the score. Enter 2012, now there are only 4. I've got words for these plutocrats who claim to represent me. Steal this MP3. In between commercials, they play nothing but the hits, and they hope to placate all of us with Lady Gaga's tits. They laid off all their staff before the PC was invented. Now they blame the world that their profits have been dented. The 1% is trying to get their fee. Steal this MP3. Steal it. Who line their pockets while the rest of us get screwed. It could all be a comedy if it weren't so crude. They want to arrest you for sharing knowledge, for violating copyright. To quote my friend Attila, these capitalists are a blight. They don't care about the culture, they just want your money. Who steal this MP3? The people don't want censorship by that name or another. They don't want your files searched by corporate Big Brother. And if it's up to most of us, no one would sign your bill just so Hollywood and Pharma can make another mill. So from the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea, steal this MP3. 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 From the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea. Steal this MP3.
So I was well, now that, see, the chat room is still happening, so I'm staying on. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, this is too exciting. And I also forgot to thank Liam McDonald for his wonderful contribution too. Thank you so much, Liam, from Belfast, from the Ardoyne, and who also asks what world leader would I like my room beside when I'm over during the G8 meetings. And that is a tough question, but of course I'll be singing for the G8, and because they all like me so much. So, but they're all the world leaders are just so uninteresting. If we had the General Assembly, meeting, then there's a lot of world leaders, a few at least, that I'd like to have my room next to. But at the G8. I think I'll just stay outside and protest with the rest of you. And of course, if anybody's listening from Belfast who's organizing a protest, I'll be there. Looking forward to singing at it. Or who's not organizing one, who's going to be at one. And I love the question from Bodhibrata about coming to India. Any plan to come to India? I would love to come to India, and that is really, it's a sort of a convenient question in a way, because it's exactly why I'm pretty much doing this subscription campaign, trying to crowdsource my career here. One of the main points is, when I think about the past, I don't want to get too boring and autobiographical here, but basically, like in 2001, I went to Argentina during the economic crisis and had, joined the protesters. And, in 2005, I did a tour around the Middle East. In 2004, I went to the World Social Forum in Brazil. And, the point is that, I used to be able to afford to go to places where I didn't have paying gigs. And I have not been able to do anything like that since I had a kid and stopped touring quite so much. And I still tour most of the year, like more than 6 months in the year, but I can't afford to go anywhere where I don't have gigs that are going to more than cover the expense of getting there, because I got to pay rent back home. So I've had some wonderful offers from people in India over the years to organize shows, but I've never had a show there that would cover my expense of getting there, so I haven't been able to do it yet. But I hope with enough subscribers, I will be visiting India. That will definitely be one of my first stops, and I'll be going to lots of other places where I don't get gigs that would otherwise make it work for me to get there. And the obvious thing is that there's several 100 million fluent English speakers, or maybe more than 1 billion English speakers, and since my audience is potentially those who speak English, it would make very good sense for me to be doing tours in a lot of places that I haven't been so far, but where I think I would have great stuff to write about and great experiences, and hopefully would be able to play a role in the scene there to some limited extent. Of course, I'm talking about places like India and lots of other countries in Asia and Africa and elsewhere in the world where there are people who are a potential audience for me, given that they speak English, which is my limitation as a performer, and well, and then VJ says, who said somebody I should bring Pete Seeger with me if I go to India, and I would love to. That's a brilliant idea. I'm a big fan of Pete Seeger's. I've also sung on the same stage as Pete on a number of occasions, and they are certainly some of my most memorable memories. And he's a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he's still kicking. He's not touring nearly as much as he used to, but he still likes to get out and tours every now and then a little bit. Does gigs here and there, often with his grandson Tao Rodriguez Seeger, who's a fantastic performer as well, and a very nice guy. And so there you go. And unless something else pops up on the chat room that compels me to stay online, I was going to do other songs like about recent police killings in New York and Portland, and there's a lot of other things in the news that I could be doing songs about here. But I'm going to do lots more songs on my next show, which will be on, maybe I'll do another one before then, but the next one I got planned basically is going to be for sure part of the monthly series of This Month in History and Song will be on April 7th. That's on the first Sunday of every month when I do the normal monthly thing. This is a special subscription drive special, by the way. But the first Sunday of every month I'm doing This Month in History and Song, and I'll be doing more songs about recent events and about history from the month of April on April 7th. So hope to see you all there in the chat room and online and in the archives and whatever else. And thank you very much for joining me here for another show. And here I'll close out with a song that is probably my most popular song among the anarchists of Denmark. And by the way, I'm going to be in Denmark not only by myself but also with Attila the Stockbroker, and we'll be doing several shows together in Denmark. We have dates free to do more shows in Denmark if anybody's interested, and then we'll also of course be playing together at least to some extent in England, like at his Glastonbury Beer Festival. And thanks for listening, and I'm going to close out here with I'm a Better Anarchist Than You, the version from Big Red Sessions, which is the coolest, most punk rock version, which you can download for free or by donation at davidrovics.com by clicking on the Download Big Red Sessions and More link. And there's your commercial announcement. This whole thing's been in a commercial announcement, but I am an American, and it is my social obligation to try to sell you stuff and beg for money. And so I've fulfilled my obligation as a citizen. Maybe they won't evict me quite yet.